When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Warning, creators of this game do understand the subject matter may be offensive to some, but they do honor the families and people that have been affected by these real-life tragedies that these individuals have caused. Want to play a game?
Oh, yeah!
Lover of true crime?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we got an interesting game for you to check out.
Wow.
With the mashup of influences such as horror movies, collecting cards, and RPGs.
What?
Led to giving birth to an incredible creation of this game, Killers, the card game.
You are all I killed with now.
This game is a collectible trading card game featuring some of the most infamous killers, with tidbits of trivia on the back of each card to help you learn some insight to each criminal.
Who the hell are you?
Let's not forget, during the game, cops will be chasing you and these criminals.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
However, check out their website listed through all social media today, which can be found under Killers, the card game.
Am I on the internet?
I want to play a game.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Tod Gordon, and this show rocks. It's hardcore. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey guys, this is Sean Oliver, Kayfabe Commentaries and Click This Kevin Nash Podcast. And I want to remind you guys, crazy. That's how it goes. Millions of people living as foes. Maybe it's not too late to learn how to love and forget how to hate. We're going off the rails on Crazy Train Radio.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and wrestling fans of all ages, mostly the older ones. because many of these stories have been told from different perspectives, from different situations and different folks that helped kept the allure of ECW alive even 20 years after going out of business. This new book, our guest tells the story of his time in ECW, but also discusses names such as Paul Heyman, the Sandman, Terry Funk, Styles, Public Enemy, Eddie Gilbert, and others. Thanks to Dr. Mike for this grab, but these next guests are heavily involved with the new book. Hopefully, Tod is God. So let's go ahead and welcome the original owner of ECW, Tod Gordon, and his co-writer, who is a second-time guest with us, Mr. Sean Oliver. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Doing good today. Surprised you invited Sean back a second time.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Sean, we're going to get to Sean's 6 books and kayfabe commentaries, all the great work he does. When I saw the book, and I wanted to promote it almost immediately, and I went on Busted Open twice and mentioned it. And the first time Tommy Dreamer said nice, he was pretty jazzed about it. I thought this was a Beatles-esque reference. I forgot, the fans used to chant Tod is God at the shows, but because of Todd's influence and global importance and everything that's in this book, Tod is God, with the foreword by Terry Funk, which is really, that alone is reason for anybody on the planet to buy the thing. But Tod, your influence still to this day, there's ECW chants at arenas all around the world. You influence, obviously, when you say that you're the third most influential promoter. I would think you were the primary in that period of time, the 90s, during the morph from Eastern to Extreme. The most influential because, look, WWF had to change their style entirely to win the war with WCW. They came, the Attitude Era thing was all ECW. The Austin thing was Sandman. WCW had to. Everything you've done with this is your legacy being carried out, today. It's kind of mind-blowing, and this book chronicles all of that and more stuff we didn't know.
You're really kind to say that. To me, it was just an amazing situation to be in a position where even to be mentioned in groups like that, from our humble beginnings, it couldn't have gotten more humble the way we started and the way we grew. You were there from the beginning. You were there back in the Eastern days. You remember it all.
Well, it was so brilliant because Eddie Gilbert came from the mind, it was proffed and finessed by Bill Watts, who learned from Roy Shire, Vince Sr., Gagne, Eddie Graham, Tunney, the real Tunney in Toronto. And that was the first guy you used. And then, Heyman, what can you say? He's got the most happening angle storyline in the world today with the Bloodline. But it's just brilliant. And to see the reinvention of people, like, for example, even the women, Missy Hyatt or Nancy, many others, and then the creation of these characters. When I say reinvention, I'm thinking Matt Bourne, he gets let go by WWF as Doink, the original best Doink, and then he comes in, and I was there only for a megasecond in the dark side of the ring, shooting him against Scorpio as Born Again with half of his face painted, and took a ton of photos in the back with him because I knew his dad, Tough Tony. But so brilliant. And whenever the WCW, Bischoff, and Vince, WWF would take or steal ECW talent, you guys were constantly reinventing. But I love the Eastern Championship stuff. Sullivan and Snuka, and obviously Eddie, and brilliant people. And
Morocco. Don Morocco.
Yeah, Morocco, who's got a brilliant mind too. But I'm also fond of, the TWA period. I want to read about that in the book, which I just got with Joel Goodhart. And you beat him to the punch because his book might not come out till next year. But Tod is God is out there right now for everybody to enjoy. Or actually, when is it going to be, guys? When is it going to be in stores? And right now, people can order it.
You can order it now. Pre-order it on Barnes & Noble and Simon & Schuster and a number of places. And it comes out publicly in all the stores July 25th.
Okay, and the publisher is Permuted Press. I don't know why I thought, so that'll give me a third chance to plug it on Busted Open. I thought it was an imprint of Simon & Schuster.
They're the distributor.
Permuted Press does all, is it?
They're the distributor. Simon & Schuster is the distributor, and Permuted Press is the publisher, yeah.
And they're pretty major. They do, I think, a lot of sci-fi and all kinds of popular titles. So Todd has got fits right in because to us he is a superhero. He made the business better. His contributions, Tod Gordon's contributions, are going to outlive us for hundreds and hundreds of years. So this book is, I'm going to throw to John now, but this book is must read for everyone. And it's like Christmas in July in the book coming out. I don't know if you guys thought of that, but everybody needs, and this should be in everybody's library. Everybody should be reading this and talking about it.
You're really kind, Mike.
So, Mike, the check is in the mail for the kindness.
Oh,
yeah,
I love Todd. It's so good to let me shot that never gave me shit.
Yeah, Todd's checks will actually clear, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, different time, whatever. But I know the obvious reason. But Todd, why was it important to include Sean as your co-writer? Because obviously he is a very knowledgeable man to the business. He had, kayfabe commentaries. He's a co-host with Kevin Nash on Click This, and he's done books on his own, like Mike said. So what was it about Sean when you needed a co-writer?
It's a no-brainer. I did 2 DVDs with Sean, and we were very, very comfortable together. And what would happen is we became more and more friendly and started, getting together and talking on the phone, whatever it may be. I would just start telling him stories. And he started with me years ago. You got to write a book. I said, I'm not writing a book. You got to write a book. I'm not writing a book. Let's just talk. And I tell him more stories. We got to record these stories. Little by little, he talked me into it. And we spent months, 8 months maybe, doing the Zoom calls back and forth, which he recorded. And all I did was tell stories. They weren't in any kind of order. God, what a Herculean task he had to find the chronological order to fit them into the book, but he did. He's amazing. He's got a great skill set, and it was just a natural fit together. He's the perfect guy.
I agree with him. What a gift, though, to be given the task of writing something like the start of ECW, the start of something that changed the landscape in which it operates for decades to come. So this was to say it wrote itself would be an exaggeration, but the material, to be given the material that I was, made this a far less Herculean task than Todd realizes, because I watched it as a fan and I was very aware of what was happening because it brought me back. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I was a product of Vince Sr.'s show and Superstar Billy Graham, and then later Hulk Hogan. But, when you hit college and the product is putting hockey players in the ring and pig farmers in the ring, and what's happening in popular culture, grunge music, Nirvana, Tarantino's films, edgy, dark, adult, risque. I fell out of love with wrestling, and I chalked it up to being a childhood pastime, like comic books or something like that, where might have functioned for other people. But then I saw ECW for the first time in 1994, and I said, okay, I can suspend disbelief again. I can laugh again. I can have people not insult my intelligence and swerve me. And so I was along for the ride. So to write about the fertile soil that ECW was planted in was second nature, because I lived it from a fan's perspective.
Let me say something quickly, too. I don't know if Todd knows this, but I was on the board of Cauliflower Alley Club, and after attending the November to Remember in '94 and just having a blast in the back watching Sherry Martel put the Flair sort of stencil on her boob for the angle with, she was in the main managing Shane, and Pillman was the replacement from WCW of Steve Austin against Ron Simmons and Scorpio. But such a blast, all the shows I'd seen up to that point, and this one was just a magnificent show. Malenko's against Sabu and Taz. Everything was amazing about that show. I lobbied the board to give ECW Promotion of the Year. It's the only, in the near 63-year history of Cauliflower Alley, it's the only Promotion of the Year award ever given. But I lobbied them, got to present. So I don't know if Todd, I don't think you were at that one. We were talking about the Terry Funk 97 Amarillo Ranch deal. But this was 1995. Heyman, 911, Public Enemy, Dreamer, and Taz were there, and the president at the time was Lou Thez. So I'm given ECW Promotion of the Year award in 1995 with Thez and Danny Hodge and Vern Gagne and Cowboy Dick Hutton, an NWA champion behind me and stuff. And so that was a thrill, but I thought well-deserved because you could see ECW was going to break. And we haven't even talked about, I don't know if it's in the book, which I've not been able to read fully yet, but Todd's use of music, along, with Heyman and other creative minds, the use of popular grunge, etc. music, brilliant use, for example, of Beck's Loser for
Mikey Whipwreck.
Mikey Whipwreck. Come on, you tapped into that. And every promotion from WWF, now WWE on, tried copying that, but nobody achieved even that. That was just a brilliant nugget of, the tons of other things that you're doing. But, everybody had fantastic music. I mean, Sandman, still greatest entrance in the history of the biz. No question. I don't think anybody... Todd, it's this is what you're going to get in reading the book, and I can't wait.
Mikey Whipwreck was going to be called the Ultimate Worrier because his actual character was who he really was. He was so worried about going home and his mom seeing him with a black eye or seeing him like all welled up. And he'd say, I'm going to get in so much trouble. What do I do? What do I do? So we were going to actually call him the Ultimate Worrier instead of Warrior, obviously. And then we ended up going with Mikey Whipwreck, which is completely different. But music-wise, that was really Paul. He was way ahead of the curve with the music. I was still stuck in classic rock, and he was turning me on to all that music, and I was loving everything he turned me on to.
Yeah, I mean, the theme song alone, that was the music of the day. And, where you were getting we were talking about all the different goof characters in WWF at the time. And this just felt real. And I think people connected to it so much. The fans were the stars of the show as well.
100%. It was like the, go ahead, sorry.
No, I mean, that is a testament to what you created. Is the fans loving it and going out of their minds, and the pay-per-views, everything that followed.
My whole philosophy from day one is I want to put on a show that I would enjoy seeing. And I knew if I liked it, the kind of fans who came from Philly, they were going to like it too. We were a heel town. We couldn't stand things being shoved down our throats. We couldn't stand stipulations that we knew weren't going to be held. We gave you a stipulation that they'll never tag again. They never tagged again. Ian and Axl Rotten never tagged again. Someone got unmasked, they got unmasked. Clothes got ripped off, we got ripped off. We didn't rip off the fans. And we gave them some of everything. We gave them comedy. We gave them hardcore for sure. We gave them mat wrestling. And we gave them, when Rey Mysterio, those guys came in, everything that was out there that we thought was good, we liked, we put on the show.
I'm throwing to Jonathan, but Eddie and Malenko alone, and then a house show. It wasn't even an ECW arena I shot, and I thought it was the greatest match of the year was Benoit Taz. Just a Pegasus kid. I think he came in straight from Japan. I think it was his debut for ECW, and the promotion was magic. Jonathan.
But Sean, I'm curious to know, with writing a book for Todd, with Todd, the whole bit, you said the story tells itself, obviously. But how important was it for you to make sure the book sounds like it's Todd speaking and it's in his voice?
That's step one. And my earliest exchanges with Todd, when you're writing with someone or for someone, in this case, there's always that question of how much do I show? When do I show? First draft stuff can be a little rough sometimes, but I was very comfortable giving Todd everything as I wrote it. And my first instruction to him was, we can change verbiage, we can change details. You have to let me know if I have your voice. I'm doing a book right now with X-Pac, Sean Waltman, his autobiography, and when he read his voice, his was, yeah, that's my voice, but I'd like you to clean me up a little bit. So it's the first step when you work with somebody. And I think because Todd and I have a similar sense of humor, a similar appreciation for a lot of pop culture things from old guys like us. And, I always said at heart, I'm an old Borscht Belt Jew. And so that allowed us to kind of always draw out the stories the same way. Tod would say to me, we got to the punchline too fast. You got to stay in the room more. You got to say what 911 said on the plane after that. We draw the story out more. So we understood the storytelling. We had a similar outlook on that. So I think that made it easy for me to become Tod when I wrote.
Well, I'm curious from both of you, because like I said in the introduction, that many stories from ECW have been told from different perspectives and everything else like that, whether it be from DVDs with kayfabe commentaries or other shoot companies or whatever the case may be. Is there anything here in the book that might surprise folks?
I would say to you that there's going to be more than just a few things that will surprise folks. One of the reasons that I was actually proud to do this is because of the fact that every national publication, whether it was the Rise and Fall of ECW on DVD or a book of same thing, someone would say to me, "Is that true?" I say, "No." He said, "Well, why didn't you tell them that when they interviewed you?" I said, "They never interviewed me." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I've never been interviewed for any of these so-called recreations or retelling of how ECW was formed. That's why they're all called unauthorized stories. I had the authorized story. I was there. I was there for every little bit of it, every piece of it from day one. It was an imagination until it actually became a real thing." He said, "Let's tell them the authorized story then. Let's tell them the real truth." So there are going to be a lot of things that are going to be blown up in that book. You're going to say, "Whoa, I always thought this is what happened." No, that's not what happened. That's just the story that's going on for 30 years.
Even the boys, too, will be surprised. We were at a convention together a few months ago, and Tod was sitting with Shane and educating Shane on something Shane had come to believe as truth for the reason Eddie Gilbert was let go. It had been told all over the place, shoot interviews for his passing, a comment about Todd's wife at the time, which ended up, he may have said it, but Tod will tell you it ended up not being the case at all. Tod wasn't even aware of the comment until after the fact when Heyman had mentioned something to him. So even the boys are getting a little bit of a re-education with Tod as God.
Well, I'd known Eddie since 1970, so I was upset when he left, but I think Heyman was the proper person to take it to the next level. So I didn't even know that. But the subtitle of the book, Tod is God, the authorized story of how I created Extreme Championship Wrestling, Tod Gordon and Sean Oliver. Let me read this from Fonzie, quote, "If there was ever such a thing as an honest promoter, it was Tod." So that's high praise. Also, I didn't even know that Todd's daughter, she moved out to somewhere in Southern California, tried out to be in the Re-Envision Glow Netflix show. So that's in the book. So, we don't want to give away stuff, but wow.
Well, Mike, I want to bring up, too, obviously Tod buying in after the whole Joe Goodhart days and when that went to shit, sadly. When did you learn, Tod, to pick up on when guys might be trying to work you or bullshit you and, being a promoter and not being taken advantage of?
My very first show.
Larry Winters.
Larry Winters, my very first show we did at the bar. He was my booker, and as he was Joel's, and he wanted to do some angle. It was he, JT Smith, Tony Stetson, and DC Drake, I believe.
Yeah.
And an angle where they were going to paint JT white, and I thought that was tasteless, and of course it was. And then they kept saying, "They know what they're doing. You don't know. Trust us, trust us, trust us." And the only way you're going to ever get me to acknowledge anything is you got to do. If you do one, you got to do the other. If you're paint someone black, you got to paint somebody white. You got to keep it all straight. You can't make it look like some kind of, whatever, prejudicial 3-on-1 thing. No problem, they said. They got up there, they ran the match, they came back, they forgot black paint. So only JT got painted. And I took me about 2 seconds to realize I got worked, and I was pissed. I said, "Guess what, guys? As of now, I'm the booker. Anybody that's like what I say, they can get the hell out. I don't care. I don't need to do this. It's like a little hobby I'm starting here. You don't want to be part of it? Don't be part of it. But don't bullshit me. I'm in business. I've been doing it all my life. I know what it's like when someone tries to manipulate me or work me. I'm not going to have it. And I just took the book away, and that was it.
Well, you mentioned TWA. I just want to say my Gong editor, Wally Yamaguchi, had already purchased my plane tickets for that Nature Boy versus Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers Landell versus Buddy Landell, Doc and Gordy against Crawford Furnace, All Japan War. So jazzed, but then depressed when it stopped. But then, thankfully, Eastern Championship started. I was really
Busted Idol against Jerry Lawler. He had about 75 or 80 other wrestlers on that card. I mean, it was
Abby in a rematch.
It was absurd.
Yeah, it was packed with talent, but you created talent to go along with, everything else that you did. So we weren't depressed for too long when TWA, kind of passed.
That was the philosophy. Started getting your local guys over. In my very first shows, I brought in Ivan Koloff, who was such a gentleman. The first thing he said to me is, "Who do you want me to put over?" First, Ivan, you're a superstar. These kids are like, he said, "No, that's the business. I got to pay it forward. I got to help you build them. So it means something when they get in the ring." And I learned from him. I learned from Snuka. I learned from all the guys back then as I was first getting my feet wet. I had such great teachers and great, minds to be around. It was a fascinating time.
Did you ever get a chance to even talk to Bruno one-on-one? Because he actually watched and loved a lot of what you're doing, because it wasn't just, he said it's not, he kept hearing it was all violence, but he goes, no, there's good mat and chain wrestling going on. There's all kinds of elements. It's not just one. Obviously, that might have gotten all the PR, but there was other things happening.
That's the problem. Most people who hear of it are thinking, they go, oh, that was all that blood and gore and guts and barbed wire. Yeah, but it was also tons of comedy with the BWO, with Public Enemy. And there was tons of chain wrestling, as you said. There was every part of the business that was good, the best parts of each, always on every show. It was never just one thing.
Yeah.
I heard Bruno was a huge fan of Angel Amoroso's chest. So when that got bared in the ring and he put that over, that was it. That was the stamp of validity for Tod and ECW. It was
the Virgin Princess, is she in the book? Well, we'll have to read it and see.
Oh, she's there. Everybody's in it.
Well, I remember her mom and sister coming with her to shows. She was so nice, wanted their pictures taken with them at these shows. And even at the Tom Robinson benefit that you, before the Shane Douglas thing, which changed the landscape, that was, the gunshot heard around the world. But well before that, like 2 years before that, at least, was the Tom Robinson benefit, where you actually worked alongside Dennis Coralluzzo. And what I like is he's even in here, but you look at the brilliant way you wrote the table of contents for each chapter. They're nearly one word each that fully describe. People will get immediately, business, Goodhart, Eastern, enter Paul. Instead of enter Sandman, enter Paul. There was a lot of craft putting this whole book together. Just the table, the contents. ECW Afterlife, Worker Deaths, Storm Clouds, Partying, Peaking. Great stuff, guys.
That's Sean.
Well, I wanted to mention, too, because you mentioned about Ivan, showing respect and stuff. And in certain ways, the guy I'm thinking of showed Tod respect. And Sean had this story on one of the DVDs with you, Tod, and that was Road Warrior Hawk, where he called you or something, said, hey, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to be all fucked up and this, that, and the other, but I'll make it up to you. And I thought that was honor among thieves.
That really was. He called me up and he said, I got to be honest with you. You've been so nice to me. I really dig working for you. And you took me when I had no job anywhere else. He said, but I'm going into lockdown this weekend. I said, you're getting arrested? He goes, no. Lockdown. We're going to a cabin in the woods. Just smoke it up a bit. We won't be out for like 2 or 3 days. But I promise you, I'll come in next time. I'll give you one show for free. I'll do another one. I'll do 2 shows for you. No problem. Sorry about that, but you got it. I've been honest with you. So what was I going to say? I was like, thank you. I appreciate it. I did appreciate the respect, but yeah, Hulk was a good dude too. Almost 90% of those guys that came through those doors were really good people.
You know who are two big Todd Marks are Rick and Scott Steiner. They talk about you endlessly whenever I pull their ear at conventions or whatever and talk, they just did X amount of shots for you, but they love you. Most everybody in the biz loves you. And one last thing I'll throw back to Jonathan too is ECW Arena, your own venue, almost, X period of time, it becomes right in that lineage with MSG and Karakiwan Hall. Everybody to this day, still, besides the ECW chants at arenas to this day, they think of anybody that goes, like Bully Ray just headlined Bubba Dudley, headlined the main event at ECW Arena just last Saturday.
Yeah, we had a convention there that day. I saw him.
Wow.
But yeah, that building, it was just a warehouse. It was a toilet, basically. And it built up like a reputation and a mysteria, an aura, I should say, a mystery over the years that people come to Philadelphia. I've had people from Holland and like all different countries stop in my store and said, we came to Philadelphia on our vacation. I wanted to see if I could meet you at your store, and I wanted to see the arena. I said, wow. So they went over to the arena to see the arena. It was this crazy thing, crazy experience. But I get that all the time, and 30 years later, it's so humbling, Mike, I can't tell you.
Everything you touched that was a mecca, but just brilliant stuff.
But the legacy.
I want to bring. Sorry, what were you going to say, Todd?
The legacy is very humbling. It really is.
It was because it's so huge.
I want to bring up something that I don't think many people realize, or at least it's the whole telephone, telegraph, tele-wrestler. You know how that shit goes. But after ECW closed, there a couple people ran at the old arena. You had XPW and all. But rumor had it that Todd was involved early on with 3PW. It was run by Meanie and all that. So what was it like for you being involved with new companies like that, trying to run the arena, but also trying to live off the legacy of what ECW was?
I actually did it with two companies. It was 3PW, which was Jasmine St. Clair and the Blue Meanie. Originally, they just asked me to come down as a favor to them because they wanted to do a match with New Jack, Sandman, and Sabu, and a body bag match. And they were a little concerned whether they could control the three of them. The New Jack was a wild card, and Sandman was his own wild card. And so they asked me if I would come in and kind of like run the match for them, referee the match, just do the match for them. And I did. And they gave me a nice payday. And then they said, "Would you want to come back and do it again?" Well, and then little by little, she ended up giving me a nice chunk of money to be her booker. So I just booked the shows for her. And I tried to use a lot of the same formulas with just younger people and bringing in some of the veterans too, like Scorpio and Gary Wolf, who was local. And of course, Meanie, who was there. So it was a combination of that and some young kids coming up, like a Sandpunk, some indie guys on their way up. And it was a formula that worked. It was good. It was the same kind of formula as ECW with just different names. And then we did it again with PWU. Same thing in that building. And that was it. That was my swan song.
Just briefly, another tribute to you is the three-way dance. Everybody's done it since Shane, Sabu, Terry Funk. Obviously, that was the best. But yet another tribute to you. I'm sure that's probably got to be in the book.
Sure. Mike, we broke a lot of ground. We did things that had never been done before. The three-way dance is number one. You see it everywhere now. Now you see five guys in the ring, each fighting for themselves. But back then, you never had seen three.
Nope.
There was a whole new way of going about it. The tables matches, the Singapore Cane match. I mean, all of that was first time done with us.
Everybody uses a Singapore Cane ever since ECW. I mean, you see it every week now, still, after all these decades on TV.
One of the things I want to point out as we talk about all the innovation, sorry, John, is that it shouldn't be lost on anybody as they read this, that one of the formulas of Todd's and Paul's success was they listened to the workers too. It wasn't like a top-down fascist dictatorship. The guys they surrounded themselves with were so smart, the ones that were, and they knew when to listen to them too. So that in any leadership position is so crucial. And I think that was a unique thing with ECW also. It also helped with that to foster that brotherhood there as well.
I wanted to ask Sean, is you mentioned earlier about ECW bringing you back in, in terms of suspending disbelief and all that fun stuff. And obviously, you talked a lot on your different series about ECW and such. Is there something as a fan that really stood out for you that when you think ECW, go, wow?
It would be any of those watershed moments that all of the ECW fans share with me. The stuff that made it into the opening credits of the show, the chairs with Mick and Terry in the ring, the chairs getting thrown in. And strangely for me, I mean, I liked the daredevil aspect of ECW a little bit. It was intriguing watching New Jack go through 7 tables, but that wasn't what hooked me. What hooked me was I felt like the company was talking to me. I read the sheets. Like I knew the shit that was going on behind the scenes. I guess I was a smart mark, I guess you could call me, in college. And I felt like that company was talking to me. Oh God, I'm trying to think offhand now. Todd, the farewell match where it took 4, was it like 4 pinfalls for Scorpio? Yeah, tell that story.
Well, the thought was that everybody knew he was going to go to the WWE. It got out before the show had taken place. So we're going to do a loser leaves ECW match, which is traditional, and that way you would cart him off. I had an idea. I said, wouldn't it be funny if everybody's expecting him to lose and he won? Now, the other guy suspended for like 30 days, and we did it with like 3 or 4 guys in a row. The audience was going out of their minds. Each guy, they thought, this is crazy. Scorpio's the one's leaving. Why are all these guys getting suspended? And then finally, brought out Louis Spicolli, I think it was, and finally beat him.
I miss Louis. He started in SoCal with Bill Anderson and Jesse Hernandez as just a little kid. Really miss Louis a lot. A great person. Another guy I want to throw credit to is Ron Buffon. I remember after post shows, those till daybreak, tapings and getting everything just right over and over till it was perfect. And Tod Gordon, the standard of excellence there again.
Ron and Charlie both were terrific what they did.
And they don't always get the credit they should, but we just did that. How are we doing? John, how are we doing on your time? You're at the airport. We okay?
I'm going to close things out because obviously we want people to read the book and such. But I also want to bring up again, Sean, you have clicked this and stuff. And I want to be a little real for a second here in terms of obviously you guys started the show. Then you got Kevin Lost T and all that stuff. And obviously I still check out the show and stuff. But how is Kevin doing this far out? Because obviously there was a time period that, because he's a witty guy and people took things the wrong way when he made jokes and whatnot.
Yeah, well, very early on, we had the opportunity to establish the fact that Click This was going to be the realest podcast out there when Kevin lost his son at 26 years old. And I spent the day making arrangements for guest hosts, co-hosts, and best of shows for the foreseeable near future. And Kevin texts me at 5:00 that night and says, I didn't get a link for tonight's show. And I said, because you're not doing one, Kevin. This is day one. You lost your son this morning. And he said, I have to tell the world I lost my son, not the media. And from that point on, we didn't miss a week. He cried on air. He unpredictably things come up, and T's birthday, which passed recently, the first 4th of July without him, the first Christmas, the first Thanksgiving. Fans lived all of that with Kevin and I. So Kevin is doing as best as someone can do, having gone through the unthinkable as a parent, I guess, is the stock reply.
Yeah.
And my final question for Todd, and obviously we want people to get Todd as guys, but you mentioned there a few minutes ago about the legacy being humbling, even this far out from when everything started. What is the biggest thing for you that stands out when you talk about the legacy or ECW or just everything you've been involved with when people approach you or look forward to seeing in the book and whatnot?
I will tell you that I've never been more moved, I guess I would say. We were at a convention within the last 12 months in Philadelphia. Gentleman had to be certainly in his 50s or 60s. Came over to me and said, you saved my life. I said, I did. What did I say? Did I say I was the father? What do you mean I saved your life? And he said, no, really. I was suicidal. One night I was up, it's 2:00 in the morning, and I'm watching this UHF station, it's the Channel 48, wherever it was. And I saw ECW for the first time, and I was hooked and mesmerized, and I had to see what was going to happen because he left a cliffhanger. I could not wait to see what was going to happen the following week. And that took all thoughts of suicide away from me. And I've gone on to have a relatively normal, healthy life. And I will always be in your debt for that. And I'm sitting here 30 years later, and I'm just dumbfounded and touched and overwhelmed.
Mike, you have anything to add before we call today?
Wow, well, it's like Picasso. Todd created artwork. Sean, I want to say, tell us where you want us to send people to purchase the book, and also your own books. You've had 6 books out, besides writing TV scripts, doing the podcast with Kevin, a zillion other things. We'll probably have to have you back to talk about all the things you do, kayfabe commentaries that Jonathan follows. But where should we send people for this great book, Todd is God, and your books too?
Well, 2 things. I want fans to go wherever their favorite outlet is for books, whether it be Target.com, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Your local bookshop, of course, is always a great place to go to get your hands on Todd is God. It'll be available in hardcover, in Kindle, and I recorded the audiobook last month for it. So Recorded Books is the distributor of the audiobook version. And I'd like to pose a challenge to Jonathan and Mike. After you've read the book cover to cover, we're going to come back on and re-examine where Tod Gordon and Paul Heyman respectively sit in the public's perception of who did what in ECW.
I like that challenge. I am going to pick up the book here when I get out to San Jose in the next day or so. Well, pre-order because it's out the 25th, correct?
Yes.
Officially. So
July 25th.
I will accept that challenge. That is for sure. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you both. It's really a pleasure.
Yeah, Todd, love you.
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies. Enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions or during our particular watch-alongs. Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media and order yours today.
Hey, boils and ghouls, David Howard Thornton, Art the Clown himself, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio. Choo choo!